If you have to write it down, write it down.
Take advantage of free money.
Yo guys, what are you saying? I know it's been a while, but I'm back again with another video. Today I'll be discussing how I managed to save 55k in 4 years for my first property. If you've watched any of my previous videos before, you know that I bought my first property at 24, and it was a massive achievement of mine. It was something that I was very, very proud of. Especially buying a property by yourself without any financial support in this current situation or current climate is very, very difficult. So I thought I would make a video to share how I managed to save, my tips and tricks on how to save a deposit or save up money for your first property. So first things first, I wanted to give a breakdown of how much I saved each year leading up to the purchase of my first home. So in year one, I managed to save £8,500. I was in my second year of university, so a vast majority of my savings was from my student loan as well as any part-time jobs I had at the time. In my second year, I managed to save up £11,000, and I was in my final year of university and I just started my first graduate job. In my third year, this was my first full year of proper working, and I managed to save up £16,000. And in my last year, or my fourth year, I managed to save up £20,000, and this is because I was very bullish with my saving approach, but I'll explain this later in the video. So where I started first was schemes. I wanted to take advantage of any schemes that I could get any free money, and this is very, very important. If you have to write it down, write it down. Take advantage of free money. It is very, very important. So the first thing I saw was the Help to Buy ISA, okay? And this is an ISA account, which is a savings account, which allowed you to save up for the purchase of your first home. And so how the scheme worked is that it allowed you to save up to £200 each month, and the government will match your contributions by 25%, which at the time was fantastic. It was something that I needed. I was just starting off. As I mentioned before, I was in my second year of university. I didn't have a lot of savings at the time, so this was a really great scheme for me to put in money, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll get my contributions matched at 25%. Where I feel that this scheme kind of lacked was that when I realized that I couldn't use the money saved for my deposit. I feel like a lot of people that are saving up for a property need the money accumulated and saved up for the deposit, but the scheme only paid out the money once the property was completed, means once you've collected the keys. Another downfall of the account is that you could only save up a maximum of £15,000. This broke down into £12,000 of your own savings plus the £3,000 bonus that the government was going to give you as well. I felt that this was quite limiting if you were trying to save up in the long term, because it just limited you to a cap of £15,000. So another ISA account I looked into was the Lifetime ISA, or LISA for short. Similar to the Help to Buy ISA, the government will match your contributions by 25%. However, the difference was that you could save up to £4,000 each year. And so for example, for me, each year I saved £4,000, the government will match my contributions by an extra £1,000. So one thing I really liked about the Lifetime ISA account is that it also was a stocks and shares account, which meant that I could invest into the stock market as well. As I mentioned before, I was pretty young when I first started saving for my property, and so I had no idea about saving or investment. So I thought this was a great way to introduce me into the investing world. So what I did, my strategy was that I was only going to invest the bonus, so the extra £1,000 that the government gave me. So this way I could learn how to invest relatively risk-free with money that wasn't technically mine. So eventually I got a lot more comfortable with investing, so I increased the amount I put each month into my Lifetime ISA account. And this worked really, really well for me because I managed to save up a lot of money from that as well. I do want to say that I am not a financial advisor. This is not advice. I'm just explaining what I did and my process. Please do your due diligence as well. With that being said as well, I want to make sure that you also know the risks that you can take with the Lifetime ISA account. So if you are not in a position that you have liquid cash at the moment, it's not an account that I'd recommend. Again, not recommendation. It's not an account that I would personally go for, because with the Lifetime ISA account, it is amazing. I agree, it's really, really good, but you need to understand the implications as well with the account. For example, if you were to take out your money prematurely, you do get taxed at 25%. So you do end up losing some of the money that you put into the account. The reason being is that this account was only designed for it to be used for the purchase of your first home or your pension. For any other reasons, it's not a valid reason for you to take out your money, so you will get taxed on it. So please do your due diligence before investing into this account. Another thing I used was savings accounts. When looking at the market, I realized that interest rates were terribly low. We're talking about 0.01%, 0.02%. It was very, very low. And it's peanuts in comparison to the amount you're putting in. I studied economics in university, and one thing I learned is that when you're saving, you want your interest rates to at least match or exceed inflation, which is practically impossible in this country. It's very, very difficult. But what I used was loyalty savers. This was a great way for me to save up a lump sum and get a decent interest rate as well. So how it worked is that I'd save up roughly $250 each month, and then at the 1 year anniversary of my account, the government will pay off the provided interest rate. At the time, I was with Nationwide, and so I put $250 in my account each month, and after the 1 year anniversary, they paid out 5% interest on the account, which was great. I opened that with multiple different banks as well, and I managed to save up a decent amount. Again, it's not life-changing, but when you're started in the beginning, it's a great way to get going as well, and at least not lose money, at least match inflation, at least get that money from that perspective as well. So that's another great tool I used that helped me, especially in the beginning of my journey. While saving, I was fortunate enough to live with my parents, which meant that I could save up a lot more money while still contributing to the upkeep of the house. I do understand that everyone's circumstances are different, and that's why it's important to plan and budget accordingly to your own circumstance. One rule I used was a 70-20-10 rule, which essentially meant that 70% of your income should be allocated towards your living expenses, 20% towards your savings, and 10% towards any charitable donations that you want to give. Because I was very bullish in my approach in saving, I kind of flipped that on its head. So what I did was that I allocated 70% of my funds towards saving, 20% towards the living expenses, and 10% towards church or charitable donations. For example, if I earned £1,000 a month after tax, £700 would be allocated towards my savings, 200 will be allocated towards any living expenses that I had, and £100 for charitable donations. Budgeting was very, very important for me because it allowed me to forecast in the future how much I was predicted to earn each month. So I knew exactly when I'll be ready to look for a property and how much I would have at a certain time. While saving, it's very important to get a better understanding of your own financial situation. So one tool I personally used that was really good for me was an affordability calculator. Most banks have one, and how they work is that you put in your income and you put in your expenses, and the bank will calculate how much they're willing to borrow you based on what you put into the calculator. Typically, how it works is that banks are willing to borrow you up to 4.5 times your income. For example, if you're earning £10,000 each year, the bank will be willing to borrow you 45k, and if you're earning 50k each year, the bank will be willing to borrow you up to £225,000. So that's how it typically worked, and it was a great start for me to understand how much I needed to earn in order to buy my first property, or any property for that matter. One thing I would say is that these calculators are very accurate, because when it was time for me to get my mortgage approved, the amount that the bank was willing to borrow me was the exact amount that the calculators had said or quoted. So I do recommend that you do these mortgage calculators, because it does give you a real life depiction of how much you can borrow and lets you know how soon or how close you are to buying your first property. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, guys, was my behavior. Anyone that knows me knows I'm an extremely frugal guy. No, I'm not gonna say that. No one's gonna know I'm frugal. The last thing I'd want to talk about today was my behavior while saving. Anybody that knows me knows that while saving, I was an extremely frugal guy, which basically meant that I was very conscious of the way I spent my money, and also I had to make sacrifices, and that's necessary. This is the not so glamorous bit about saving that people may not talk about. Sacrifices have to be made. And if that meant for me personally that I had to cycle to work instead of taking public transport, or not eating as much takeaways as I used to, then I had to do it. For other people, it may be that instead of going to 3 or 4 holidays a year, it might be 1. But I always said that my rule of thumb is that if it fits into your budgeting plan, then it's okay to do. It's fine. Like, you also have to live as well. You can't just have one mindset, but you have to be focused on your goal. And so what I always said is that when discipline and consistency marry up together, success will happen. So stay consistent, stay disciplined, and hopefully I'll get a lot of comments or a lot of DMs, a lot of messages of people telling me they bought their first house as well. And I just want to say thank you for all your support. I'm pretty new to this YouTube game, and I see all your likes, your comments, your subscribes, and I just want to thank you. It's not easy, can't lie, it's not easy, but I'm trying to get out content, and I'm really trying to share as much knowledge that I can with everyone so people can be helped or guided or whatever they need. Please let me know if there's anything you'd want me to talk about in the future, and just write in the comments or just email me or whatever it is. But I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. From the bottom of my heart. I'm not even editing that out, you're going to see that. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Again, till next time, peace.